So let me now get back to Claudius. As I said, he is the CEO of Bild and Welt, but he is also an alumnus of the WHU Otto Beisland School of Management, part-time MBA program, I think the second cohort that we had. Significantly smaller the cohort than the cohorts are today. Not on the wonderful campus where you have been able to study, but in a hotel at the Seestern in Düsseldorf. But in these days, 9 years ago and today, it's still the same goal, namely attracting the best people that we can attract for our programs. And obviously, we have been able to succeed 2013, or it started 2011, and I think we still succeed with that. Claudius started his career in 2008 as a management consultant at the Boston Consulting Group. Once he has graduated from the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. I would personally say it's a much worse school than WHU, if I not would have graduated myself from there. So it's another excellent school. And then Claudius joined Axel Springer in 2013, initially as junior executive and chief of staff to the board division of Bild and Welt. This was then followed by several positions at Insider Incorporated and in New York, where he served most recently as COO. Today he is a member of the board of directors at Insider Inc. as well as at Morning Brew. And in July 2021 he became CEO of the Bild and Welt Group. And in his role he is responsible for Axel Springer's new brands in Germany. We are very proud on what you have achieved and very happy that you are with us today and that you are talking to us. Please, the stage is yours, Claudius.
Thank you so much, Professor Rudolph. This was amazing. I have to admit that I'm not sure when I heard such a nice introduction on Bild in recent weeks or months as you presented it just now to us. So thank you so much. Thank you once again, Professor Rudolph, dear graduates. I'm honored to be here with you today, honored to celebrate this very special day with you. Therefore, I want to say one more time and one last time, I think you mentioned my name quite some time as well, Mr. Rudolph or Professor Rudolph, members of faculty, parents, relatives, graduates, thank you so much for having and trusting me on this special day. So to kick things off, congratulations, class of 2021. I know it's 22, but after weeks and months, I think technically by now, and you experienced that probably the most, it's years, I think working and studying from home, meeting virtually was pretty daring. And so I'm particularly happy that we can meet in person again. And I think the same applies to you. You mentioned it, I think you reached out in late summer last year, basically asking for me to join today's event. And then we prepared for some in-person event late last year, a virtual one at the beginning of this year, and now the in-person version. I think in-person is by far the best one. Though, and I have to admit this, obviously I prepared for the other versions of this event too. We have wonderful studios in Berlin, as you can imagine, for our news channels, be it Bild and Welt. We have wonderful green screen applications, and the team worked tirelessly on special effects and whatnot. But you have to keep up with me now in person. I'm very sorry for that. That other version is deleted. I guess you can't have it all. This today is an important milestone in your lives, an important moment to reflect and to hit pause on, to look back. I know how hard you have worked for this very special moment, to reach this milestone in your life, but also in your career. And you might wonder, why is he standing there? Let me answer that question, or let me at least try to answer that question to the best of my knowledge. Why am I here today? Also for myself, it's a change of perspectives. On the one hand, it doesn't feel like that long ago that I was sitting not literally in your chairs, but in those chairs where you are sitting right now. Because I finished my studies not too long ago as well. But at the same time, taking a step back, it obviously was quite some time ago. I sat where you are sitting now 9 years ago, almost a decade. So many things happened since then. And time is playing some weird tricks with us, where relative periods stretch or reduce themselves magically, it seems sometimes. So it's great to be here, and I feel what you are feeling there, because still until today, this very day feels like, also it was 9 years ago, like yesterday in certain moments. But I have to admit something, and I hope it doesn't come as a surprise. For me, this is also the very first time that I'm giving a commencement speech. So bear with me if I'm not checking all the boxes of a commencement speech. But I obviously thought, how can I prepare for this speech? And I thought, well, maybe my own commencement speech can help me. And I'd love nothing more to say that I remember that speech, that I think about it every day. But I can't. I don't, and I would lie, and I don't want to lie to you. But maybe that's not the point. You don't have to remember your commencement speech. I mean it, also not this one. But in some way, I would say that I remember not even all my lectures from school. I don't know how it is with you, but I would lie. But what you should appreciate is what impact those lectures have and will have on your lives. And I would love to say that I pick up my master thesis every other day to read some brilliant arguments, but I would lie. I don't do it. So what is important is that you remember the energy you spend on writing that master thesis, that you remember the work that you put into your studies. And so independent of commencement speeches, lectures or master thesis, one thing is out of question. My time at WHU had the biggest possible impact on my life. Without my time at WHU, I would not have met my wife. Without my time at WHU, I would not have met my best man, who, similar to my time at WHU, is sitting right next to me today in the very first row. And Professor Rudolph, you mentioned that we did not experience the wonderful campus. For all the ones who have been, I think we shared the same campus. In the main auditorium, there's like the first row with the 2 seats, which at least in 2011 to 13 or 2012-13, when we were able to join the new building, were not the most favorite ones. Florian and I sat there every Saturday on our seats. At some point, we also thought about buying the seats, but I think they were taken already. So I have to say, Florian is here. My wife didn't make it. She's at home with the kids. But I think they're looking on the stream, by the way, as I just learned. So without WHU, I would not be who I am. And maybe that is part of the reason why I'm standing here today. And I hope, or better, I'm sure, you can say the same about yourself and your time at WHU. Even if some here in the room might not say that at this point in time already, one thing is out of question. You will definitely see it in hindsight by looking back. But still, even I remain doubtful why I am standing here today. One speech I remember is the welcome speech to my undergrad studies from the at that time CEO of NTV. He spoke about the term of submarine students. A submarine student is a student who is not seen at school during the year, but only during exams or exam periods, at the very end of each term. At that moment, while he was giving that speech, I thought it's a very, very weird concept. I mean, I was highly motivated, I just finished school and whatnot. It was a very weird concept that you would start something and then this CEO is explaining to you that he never showed up at school. And I have to admit, it turned out that I took the advice quite literally, not knowing at that point. Not only did I end up being in the media industry, similar to NTV, even though they are competitors, and I think we are better, slightly, but also with regards to his approach to my studies. It's not that I was hiding from school, but I was always fascinated by the things around school, which led to a situation in which I spent very little time in lectures. And I have to admit this. I enjoy meeting people, working at an institute, doing internships, spending time abroad, organizing conferences, you name it. And I have to admit, it didn't get that much better at WHU. I think I was the only student who was required to provide medical certificates during the MBA in case of an absence, because I wasn't present too many times. Though, don't get me wrong, I remain grateful until this very day for all the time I spent at school, knowing how many others did not have that opportunity. It was and is the biggest privilege of my lifetime. It's the basis for everything. As I shared with you, personally, my family, but also professionally. So I want to repeat myself. Studying is an enormous privilege for and to all of us. And so maybe that is the reason why I feel comfortable staying here. You all are the foundation for a positive development of our societies, of our shared future. And we need that foundation now, probably more than ever. Because as much as we all had hoped that the end of history would have had arrived more than 3 decades ago, the last 20 years taught us a more realistic, but probably also more painful answer to that question. At least since the beginning of the century, we have to accept that we did not reach the end of history, that the challenges ahead are mounting tirelessly. If you want to take the glass half empty view, one crisis is followed by the next. There was the dot-com boom and bust, 9/11, Afghanistan, the financial crisis. Professor Rudolph mentioned I just started working at BCG 2 weeks before Lehman imploded. I experienced the world turning from constant summer party to abyss within a day. The refugee crisis, Trump crisis, global warming, Corona, and now not a crisis, but a war. And it's important to call it exactly that. It's not just a crisis, it's a war in Europe, right next to us. Something we could never have imagined not only a year ago. Plus, that list is not over. A global economy with more uncertainty ahead than probably ever before in our lifetimes. And so I want you to think about the following question. Would you rather prefer to have 100,000 euros today or be a millionaire in 1920? Again, would you rather prefer to have $100,000 today or be a millionaire in 1920? I guess many would immediately tend to say, wait, I'd love to be a millionaire in the previous century. And we are all very smart people. We know that like 1 million in 1920 was way more worth than 1 million today. But on the other hand, with all the money in the world, you could not have bought life-saving drugs in 1920. A phone call, FaceTime calls to friends, family members around the globe, live streams to friends who are not present here today, all of that would have been impossible without those innovations which we take for granted today. So I want to change our perspectives, being aware of all the crises and challenges, back from the glass half empty. I now want to turn it half full. We all must be tremendously appreciative to live at this very moment in time. And therefore, one thing is out of question. We have to take our chances, and by doing so, must have impact on our lives, our families, our societies, the world. So, what do we need in times of crisis? Besides the conviction that not everything is bad, we need courage. I want to ask all of you to be courageous, be bold, take on additional responsibilities, now more than ever. Only if all of us act courageously, we as a society, we as Europeans, we as people of the world, have a realistic chance to tackle and solve the challenges ahead. And that starts with each one of us individually. In times of crisis, we sometimes lose the ability to see clearly. Everything seems to be in motion. Chaos seems to be on the verge of taking over. But for all of you, for us, it is important that we sort things, that we structure them clearly. So, what do we need to be courageous? We need a moral compass. There are and will be moments of temptation. I think that's a given. We need perseverance. Life provides us with daring challenges and we need to keep on. We can only solve them with the right people around us. We need intellectual brilliance. There's a reason why you're studying it or why you studied at WHU. And last but not least, we need luck. We all need it, but we all have it because we are here, as I explained before. Though those dimensions are table stakes, the basics, I want to speak about two thoughts, two concepts, two logical structures I go back to on a regular basis. I remind myself of those in many situations, professionally, but also personally. The first one sometimes feels like a miracle, like a fairy tale, because we only see things coming together as a straight line by looking back. After something happened, after a period is completed, we can see the scope, the order of things. I would call it an ex post linearization. It applies to companies, but also to individual lives and career paths. What do I mean by this? I'm with Axel Springer, a media and tech company, for more than 9 years by now. Without being too full of ourselves, I think it's appropriate to say that we managed the digital transformation until this point pretty okay, well over the last 20 years. Looking back now, it feels like a walk in the park. We started investing in digital offerings since the beginning of the century. We divested our regional print newspapers, magazines in 2013. We used the capital of those divestments to acquire new assets in the United States. And today our US media operations contribute more than $500 million in revenue to our total company results. Seems to be okay from my point of view. So was it that obvious? Such a straight line? One could put a question mark next to that assumption because we failed so many times. And we took turns which were not always the right ones. We failed to take over ProSiebenSat.1 due to a ruling by the competition authorities. We acquired the logistics company PIN, were surprised by the minimum wage structure which was introduced shortly after and lost several hundred millions in value. We tried to acquire the Financial Times in 2015 and failed on the last mile. I could add to this list endlessly, but looking back now, it worked. But it wasn't a straight line, not at all. It was daring, it required all the things I mentioned before, but in the end, it worked. And on a personal level, are life's straight lines? I disagree sharply with that assumption. Sometimes, again, it might look like that from the outside. One probably does not see the struggle, the pain. Our lives take crazy turns, and only with some distance to the current events, we can see how they connect. Doing the same reality check, the outside view, even on myself, you just heard the wonderful CV Professor Rudolph there presented, might be a simple one. Going to a great school, I know we have complications explaining in this room whether it's great or something else. Working for BCG, having a career, growing my wonderful family, spending time abroad in the US, taking on another leadership role. Was it that straight? That obvious? That simple? I personally doubt it. I had cancer when I was 19 years old. Therefore, had to pause my undergrad studies. I started working, as mentioned before, 2 weeks before Lehman collapsed in 2008. I applied for a job at Axel Springer, which I didn't get. I moved to the US without a clear perspective on how does it work. I received the opportunity to launch a new business within our US operations without a budget. In the end, things turned out to be great, so far. But each turn, life could have taken another route. And don't get me wrong, as I said before, I'm extremely grateful for the life I experienced, but it wasn't a straight line. Not at all. Therefore, my ask to you is, don't get distracted by someone else's perceived linear development in life. It's the turns which shape us and form us. I'm sure you're going to have challenging turns ahead of yourselves, but also very rewarding and fundamentally fun ones. Take those turns, embrace them. One thing, though, is key. You can't take those turns alone. You need to have family, partners, friends, mentors, colleagues, individuals who inspire and support you. We all meet so many people each and every day. It might sound outdated, but I'm obsessed with sharing what's stuck in a conversation with the one I had, that conversation afterwards. I try to follow up with short notes, not with a long letter. I mean, I'm a left-handed person, so my handwriting is horrible, so they're never in handwriting, but with a well-thought note on why I remember our conversation. Some of my most moving interactions, and in part friendships, arose from those notes. So look out for the turns in your life, cherish the opportunities and challenges ahead, but make sure that you have the right partners to accompany you on those roads. Back to my question/asking from the beginning. Asking to you, I want you to be courageous and bold. I spoke about the linearity and non-linearity of life. The second dimension I want to touch upon is somewhat related to honesty. I want to talk about opportunity cost. Yes, we all by now finished our MBAs, so we know the concept of opportunity cost quite well. But do we really? In particular, do we know and understand it as society, or rather the part of society we represent? My answer is, we don't. Or at least we're not honest about it. In many situations, we as a society create the impression that everything is possible, everything at once, that we don't have to consider, that we don't have to make choices, that we don't have to think about the cost of choosing option A over option B, and I think that is fundamentally flawed. We cannot enjoy 120% flexibility and freedom to pursue our own self-fulfillment dreams while delivering a 120% job performance and build on our dream careers, while having a family and taking care of the kids 120% of time. But society and conversations within certain bubbles of society in particular create those impressions. It's unfair. Again, I'm tremendously grateful for the life I live. I'm appreciative of the career I experience, but I'm very well aware that I'm paying a price for it, and so is my family. We're having 4 small children, expect baby number 5 in the weeks to come, and thank God for that. That is it then, by the way. But at the same time, it's brutally unfair that my wife has to explain on a regular basis why she's only a mother, and having to answer what her job is. It's a direct result of a society which ignores opportunity cost. We as a family, initially as a couple, decided that during this part of our lives, my wife provides me with the freedom to pursue the professional career I have, which limits her ability to pursue her own career, at least to this degree, during this period of our lives. And it limits my ability to enjoy the freedom of a spirited mind 120% of time, or be a father 24/7. And these days, it almost feels wrong to say something like that. But it's a decision which we made together. And there might be a point in time where our roles will be different. But it's not everything at once. There are opportunity costs in life. This is one example, and it's a personal example. We all face similar examples in different settings each day, every day. What's most interesting to me is that even the advertising industry, which is known for being very much on point and sometimes overstretching things, is very clear about the concept of opportunity cost. To make it even more obvious, Who remembers Toyota's famous claim here in Germany? Nichts ist unmöglich, exactly. Toyota, nichts ist unmöglich. It roughly says, anything is possible, Toyota. It was one of the longest running and most well-remembered claims of German advertisement. But it is very straightforward about the differentiation between anything is possible versus everything at once is possible. So I encourage you, be well aware of the opportunity cost in your life. Embrace them, even cherish them, but never forget about them or ignore them. With that in mind, I want to once again encourage you to be courageous, to be bold, take on the challenges ahead of us. We need you. Our society needs you. And while being confronted with those challenges, another small thing to think about, and it probably fits given my, as we learned by now already, academic track record, that I can quote exactly that quote. It's a sentence from my time at school, which is somehow very present until this very day. In school, the teacher applied that sentence to a multiple choice test preparation. He basically used it to highlight patterns in the answers, and we should look out for those patterns. The professor said, sentences with always are always wrong, and sentences with never are never right. I repeat it. Sentences with always are always wrong, and sentences with never are never right. There's a reason why it applies to multiple choice exams, but it also applies to life in general. Trust me, whenever you hear that something always works, be cautious, be careful. Whenever you hear someone say that something never works, be cautious. Don't accept the never. It's up to you to figure out a way how to make it work. And that now is the final turn to the founder, the person whose name our company is having until today, to Axel Springer. He once said that the term realities kills him, that it drives him crazy. He was convinced that accepting a reality at a moment in time is an escape hatch, a wrong excuse for the weak. He was convinced that the world is changed by dreams, by dedication. So, go, act, dream on, be courageous and bold, and change the world. Congratulations and thank you, class of 2021.
That was really an excellent, very good speech. So we are even prouder now on you than we have been before. We have two little presents. This is flowers as a sign of appreciation. And this looks much bigger than it is. It's actually very, very small, but we didn't want to give you a small present, even though only a small thing is in it. Thank you very, very much. And that is the small present in a big box.
Thanks a lot.